Welcome to Momdaze, a beautiful collective of mamas and experts sharing wisdom, inspiration, and life hacks to support us on this journey through the hazy days of motherhood. Welcome to the Momdaze podcast. I'm your host, Holly Lowe, and we are continuing on with our conversation about pregnancy, birth, and all things involving creating another human being. I am looking forward to this discussion today. This is something that I've been passionate about for many years. Spent almost 17, almost 18 years now doing childbirth education with a natural twist. So you will find lots of great, prenatal classes, childbirth prep classes through local outlets like hospitals and birth centers. And that's fantastic. I'm very grateful that we have those available because I will tell you this, education is key when it comes to entering into something as important as growing, creating, birthing, and raising a human being. Something I did notice, though, years and years ago was that there was very little in the way of alternative options being presented in these classes. And I felt like I wanted to know different things. I wanted to have a bit more information about certain processes. And that led me on a journey for learning more, researching more, and then just creating my own curriculum is what we ultimately did with my sister Dawn and I. We had our own business teaching childbirth classes as certified educators. It grew over the years, right? Had my own babies, had many more clients that we went through birth with. And of course, all of those experiences shape what it is that you know. It shapes the questions you ask as well, something I discovered. So, my focus today is I really want to talk about educated consent. And this is kind of, in some ways, a hot topic right now for women's reproductive rights, is it not? It really is something that is in the news. It is being discussed, especially in the US. The idea that we should have autonomous rights over our body, that we should have the ability to make decisions that are best for us and for our health, our well-being, all of that. And I find it really interesting that as soon as we are pregnant, that stops. Think about it for a minute. For many of us, and many of our clients as well over the years, we just automatically hand over our body's precious resources and our baby's health and well-being. We hand that over with full trust and expectation to our caregivers, again, expecting they are going to have 100% of our best interests at heart. Now, in all fairness, they do. But ultimately, we are the only ones in control of what happens on into our body and our baby as well. So I really want, as we talk about this, I really want you to try to have a bit of a mindset shift in the idea that women, we have ultimate autonomy and control over our bodies, as we should. That does not end as soon as we are pregnant. And that needs to even more so become a greater focus for us at that point, because we are now responsible for not just our own body's wellness, but our baby's body as well. So having said that, let's think first about things that we can control. The parts of pregnancy that we can have, our own autonomy over, and we can have our, use our discretion and do the things that we need to do to take care of ourselves. One of the things that I think is honestly really easy to do, but often overlooked, easier not to do, easier not to do, kind of one of those things, is the idea of just our own self-care. Now, I know you've heard me say this before. I don't love the term self-care because it's become trite. It's become an overused word, term. But there is very factual information to this when it comes to pregnancy. And as we've talked about in episodes past with fertility, you want to treat your body before you're pregnant like you're pregnant, if you want to get pregnant. Does that sound right? So, all of this information pertains to you whether you are pregnant now, whether you hope to be pregnant at some point. You should be treating your body 3 to 6 months prior to starting to try to get pregnant as if you already are. So, this pertains to that as well. This also has a big impact on hormones. So, even post, if you're past having your babies, how we care for our bodies in a natural way can have a very positive impact on our hormone health and just our future health as well. So let's encompass all of this into the focus of pregnancy, though. What goes onto our bodies goes into our bodies. What goes into our bodies most of the time will cross the placenta. Not always, but most of the time. So making some really simple changes like switching out your makeup for mineral makeup, something non-toxic, and don't mistake that for vegan makeup or cruelty-free makeup. That is important, obviously. But remember, we're looking for something with, a clean EWG score. We want something that is a clean mineral base, is not with synthetic fragrances and things like that. So even if you have some favorites and you have to switch them out for a few months during pregnancy, it's really not that big of a deal. So make some of those changes ahead of time, or when you find out you're pregnant, start that process. Um, I'll actually link a couple of great ones in here that I know I really love and I use through mine that are decent or great, or somewhere in that range of clean scale. It's hard to find the perfect product. There's a few that I absolutely love. And like I said, I'll put some links in there for you so you can have access to those. But something like our makeup, our skincare, our hair care, those can all be cleaned up pretty significantly during pregnancy or fertility process, any of that. And then when we look at our stress levels, I know maybe this pregnancy was planned, maybe it wasn't. Maybe there are complications you're going to face. Maybe everything's ticking along fantastic. But regardless of that, we all live with a certain level of stress. That's just how we are made. And we actually are meant to have a healthy level of stressors in our life, healthy being the key word. So I think it's fair to say across the board, we have been through a series of stressors like we've never faced before, except maybe in war times in the past and, different situations in different countries that have gone on. Our bodies absorb this, our bodies hold this, and our bodies will respond physically to these stressors. So, finding the ways that work for you, we've talked about this, so I won't go long on it, but finding the ways that work for you to eliminate some of them or to, find ways to release that stress. If you can't completely eliminate them, getting the help you need to calm your body, relax your body, whether it's with massage, osteopathy, essential oil usage, aromatherapy, things like that, that can help bring some peace into your body on a daily basis is important. The other thing I would say when it comes to consent in pregnancy is making sure, like I said, you have access to a really good childbirth education program or a class or qualified support, not just the opinions on social media, not just your best friend's birth horror stories and, this is how you should do it now. You really do need factual information so that when you are faced with these consent type decisions, you have somewhere to go to get answers, or you have some of these answers now because you've been educating yourself and you took the time to do that. Is there a good time to take a prenatal education class? I'll be honest, it depends where you're at. So if you're early in your pregnancy, if you have no idea how to take care of yourself during pregnancy, or a developmental process as far as pregnancy goes, then you may want to look at a prenatal class that covers early pregnancy and through your pregnancy. Many of them don't. Many are talking from the last trimester through to labor and delivery. Now, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek at the end, so stick around because we've got some really exciting news coming up and you're going to hear more about it. But it is tricky to find the right, I say the right, but I'm meaning qualified, good, qualified, solid information that's factual with a natural focus. That's not to say that if you've already decided, I want a medicated birth, or I'm having a planned C-section, or I already know that I have to make some choices that are not going to let me do some of these natural options. That does not disqualify you from a more natural focused approach. I think most people now are asking for nature, right? I think most of us are understanding that nature understands us. Our bodies have a beautiful symbiotic relationship with nature. And if we respect that, if we can work with that and have the balance of, the medical intervention when needed, I think you're in the right place. Like that really is the best of both worlds. What is really important when it comes to decision making through the process of pregnancy and delivery, labor and delivery, even postpartum and caring for your newborn, it's important that we have a well-rounded option. We have that well-rounded, view of what we can do, what is available to us, so that decision making process has some choice. I think one of the biggest challenges I watched over, the almost 20 years that I was involved in labor and deliveries and births and pregnancy and postpartum care was moms who, after delivery, after going through the process of having their babies, not with us, maybe, but in previous pregnancies, or hired us after things did not go as planned, it was their lack of autonomy. It was the feeling that they had no control over these decisions. It was the helpless feeling of, I didn't want this. This wasn't the direction I wanted to go. And I can't even begin to count the number of times I have done a post or I have spoken to someone personally who has shared their birth story or has shared something with me, and or has, heard something I've shared, and will then say, I wish I had known. If I had known that, I would have made different decisions. Now, none of us are going to get it perfect, especially when it comes to the unknown with pregnancy and birth. There are lots of unknowns. You cannot predict how everything is going to go, but you can give yourself the best option as far as becoming educated, as far as, knowing what your choices are. You can do that ahead of time. You can even do it in the process if you haven't done it ahead of time. So I really want you to take away from this the idea that in pregnancy in particular, you still have choices. It's your body. And that beautiful power that we have as women to fight for our reproductive rights and to, take care of ourselves how we see fit doesn't just end with that pregnancy test. It doesn't just get handed over. So, for example, let's talk about pregnancy now in particular. For example, there are routine testing that happens throughout pregnancy, and I am not against any of these. I want you to hear me loud and clear. They all have their purpose, they all have their place, and they are amazing. We have made incredible advancements over time with our prenatal care, our prenatal testing. But there's still something off, because for developed countries, we somehow still have very high infant and mother mortality rates. We do. And we still have a very high intervention rate. We also have a very high C-section rate. All of those things may not at first seem concerning, but when you start to look through the connections to these things, you'll start to see some patterns that can be concerning. And again, they all have their place. Hear me. But we need to be very careful that we don't start to lean too heavily onto one side. And that's what we see happen many times in pregnancy. We see decisions that are made as routine processes without taking the individual into consideration. You always have the option to decline routine testing. Did you know that? You do. It's the same as if I were to go to the dentist. Actually, true story. I did this the other day. My son, I could see a visible cavity in one of his little baby molars, and he's 7. And I thought, okay, it's not bothering him. He said it was kind of sensitive when he brushed. So we were taking good care of it, watching it. I have a few tricks for, healing teeth. So we were working on that. And I thought, you know what, we're going to get it looked at. I just want to see, how bad is it? Should we get it filled? Is it something of concern? Can we just wait it out? So we took him in, had it looked at. And within minutes, the dentist looked at his mouth and just said, oh, he needs a root canal. And I went, I'm sorry, what? He's 7. Why would I do a root canal on a 7-year-old's baby tooth? I go, can't we just pull it? And he looked at me like I was crazy and said, well, sure, you can pull it, but that's not going to come back in until he's like 12. I thought, okay, well, this little guy is going to need braces anyway. He's got crazy teeth. I'm not too concerned about that part. Why would I put him through the trauma of a root canal? Because it's routine for you. It's your answer. And it's not to say he was wrong. Hear me on this? You understand? It's not that he was wrong. He's the expert. He knew what he was talking about. But I still had a choice. And I left there saying, I appreciate that. Thank you. They connected me with their, specialty team that does these things. And I said, I will have a conversation with them. Not that I'm going to do it. Not that I'm making a decision right now. Just, I would like to have a conversation with them. Sure, no problem. You go ahead and do that. I did. Ultimately, the decision was, if there's no infection, it's not bothering him, you do have the option to wait a little bit, or we can pull it, or we can do the root canal. So I chose to wait. So we're waiting 2 weeks because, again, I'm going to up some of the things that I do. I want to see if anything changes. I'm not messing with anything dangerous. I'm not going to challenge his health in any way. I made sure of that. We'll go back and then we'll get a second opinion from a different dentist and see what we need to do. So I'm giving you that scenario as something maybe you can relate a little easier to. When you're presented with choices in pregnancy, we won't get to birth yet, but when we're talking about pregnancy, routine answers are routine because it's the answers they have. It's what has been developed and now used consistently to show consistent results. Makes total sense. And in many cases, they're great and they are really helpful, but not all. I'm, again, going to give you a personal story. This is not necessarily advice or one way or another. This is just information. Personally, I went into each of my pregnancies knowing that I have never struggled with my blood sugars. I take very close watch of my blood sugars while I'm pregnant. So I actually track and monitor them myself. And I put in that effort. So when I'm offered the gestational diabetes glucose test, I refuse them. My care providers recommend them. I ask for the reason why. Do you see anything in my blood work that would give you concern? Do you see any indicators that I should be worried? No? Then I'm going to decline that. If at any point we see anything of concern, then I will absolutely do the test. That was my way of maintaining some control over how things went. Now, what's the big deal? A lot of people ask, what's the big deal? It's just a routine procedure. There's a couple of things that were a big deal to me. It was a big deal because of the chemicals that are in the drink that you drink for the test are very harmful, and I would never drink them even if I wasn't pregnant. And it also would dictate some decisions leading into the end of my pregnancy as far as induction possibilities, which I was not interested in even looking at unless it was necessary. So knowing that some of these routine things have a catch, some of these routine things have a long-term string attached that you need to know about, not necessarily to say you should say no to them. A lot of people should say yes. That is for you and your care provider to discuss, but this is where consent comes in. It needs to be a discussion. It needs to be an educated conversation where you feel empowered to make a decision and do not feel coerced or expected to do something just because it's routine. The same can be said for the strep B testing, for routine ultrasounds. I had one ultrasound for each pregnancy and that was it. That's all. Because I just had no reason to keep, putting my baby through that. And I didn't really want to have to book them. And it was perfectly fine with me to not have to look in on them all the time. So there are, again, very hands-off approach, like the way I go about pregnancy. There are mamas who need the reassurance that everything's okay, and that's perfectly fine too. It's what you need for your body and then what is safe for your baby's body. So weighing those things out can be a tricky job. But again, that's why we want to take some of that guesswork away and just explain the freedom of choice, the freedom to make some of these decisions. The options are available to you if you know they're there. And then you do feel more empowered to make the decision that's right for you, the decision that's right for your body, your pregnancy. Maybe with your partner, you can have those discussions then and be up to speed on some of these things that you may be asked and some of the routine, standard testing, standard procedures that happen during pregnancy. Do you need to have internal exams done at the end of your pregnancy? No. Do you need to have internal exams done at any point in your pregnancy? No, you don't. And again, this is something that most people think is routine or okay, it's just what we were supposed to do, and you submit to this. Would you let anybody else ever just randomly check you down there? No, you would not, ladies, right? So, again, please hear that your physical reproductive autonomy does not stop as soon as you're pregnant. It does not stop as you go through the prenatal process. Even if you've gone through fertility procedures and you feel like your body has, not been your own for a long time, you do still have choices to make. You do still have the right to say no to certain things. You always have that right. So understand that, you can feel uncomfortable with something and push it aside thinking it's routine when in reality your intuition was saying something to you. Understand that pregnancy does not just turn off your rights as a human being, as an individual with your own personal boundaries and comfort. You still have the ability to do what feels right for you, for your pregnancy, for your baby. But that is going to require education. It's going to require some information at the very least. And that then builds the confidence in the decisions you make. So as you get through your pregnancy, you can look back and say, I feel good about those choices, as opposed to, I felt coerced into that choice. I didn't know I had a choice. I thought I had to do these things. So regardless of whether you choose to do things or not choose to do them, the idea is there's a choice that you actually made a decision as opposed to went along with what you were told. I'm all for, standing up and being heard. That's, for women, I think we really need to shake things up a lot more than we ever have. We feel like we've reached a certain point, we've come so far and we have, oh my gosh, we've come so far. And then we slide back in certain areas of our reproductive wellness or our, prenatal care, whatever that looks like. And we have to take some steps to move it forward again. So we will always speak about your choices. I will always, educate about your options. And that way you can be empowered to make the decision that's right for you, not the decision that was right for me, not the decision that was right for your sister-in-law or whoever, right? Or your mom. It's your body, it's your decision. So ultimately, be empowered to know that consent does not stop when you're pregnant or in labor or even afterwards with your newborn. Educated consent will always be a priority and should always be a priority. Now, how are we going to help you with this? We ready to hear my sneak peek? I want to help you with these decisions, and I have waited a long time and, really thought hard on this because I don't like to do anything halfway. One of the things that one of the purposes of doing a podcast, I knew it would be not for long term. I wasn't going to do this for years and years and years. The purpose of this was to bring us to a place where we can offer you a community. We can offer you a place to get qualified education or just qualified information, and then the support of the village of mamas and experts who can answer questions, who can share in the triumphs and the woes of motherhood. That is what my heart has always been in this process. So, drum roll, please. The big part that I want you to know about coming up is our membership site is underway. this is a big deal. It might not seem like a big deal to you. It's a big deal to me. I've spent a long time building out our, Oil Babies website and working hard to get our natural pregnancy and parenting products up to par where I see the quality level where I want it to be. Now it's time for the programs. So I already have our fertility program ready to go, our cleanse program. We have our belly basics coming. We have baby basics coming. We have your birth basics. Basics being, I'm not going to overwhelm you with information. I'm going to give you what you need to know to make qualified, educated decisions, to give good consent to the things you feel right about. That's what this community will be about. You will have the opportunity to access it 24/7, and stay tuned because I'll give you more information on this, but it is something I've poured my heart and soul into and will continue to grow and pour my heart and soul into for you. So get excited with me. I hope you're excited. This is a big deal. And I know that we will be talking a lot more about some of the options that are going to be coming up with that. So stay tuned and stay with us because there is a lot more good stuff to come. Would you like to learn more? Find me on Instagram and YouTube at Momdaze Podcast.